Let us now start with the first technical session for today. We have a very relevant topic for the first technical session. Transforming internal audit in digital age. We can go so far as to call the current age one of technological disruption where everything is unpredictable. In such a scenario, it is now largely expected that internal audit will rise to this occasion and will support strategic objectives of corporates. Anchoring this session for us today is Mr. Giridhar Janardhanan, member of BOG IA MADRAS. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you. So may I welcome Mr. Sudheer Warrier, CTDO of Sundaram Finance on stage. And Deepika, kindly please come. So let me do a quick introduction to Mr. Sudheer Warrier as well as Ms.Deephika. Sudheer Warrier is the current Chief Technology and Digital Officer at Sundaram Finance. Sudheer spearheads the entire digital transformation projects at Sundaram Finance and is a key catalyst to business change. Prior to this, he worked as a VP and Global Head at TCS and for about 3 decades. Some of the key roles he played in terms of his prior experience and expertise was in the digital space. He was the Global Head of Re-engineering Practice, responsible for creating technology offerings and evangelizing across industry verticals, strategic alliances, and technology companies, owned large compliance transformation engagements, mainly in insurance, BFSI segment, retail, and telecom companies. He has some key industry recognitions. He was awarded the leader in Nelson Hall's 2019 Smart IT Services in the Utilities Sector report. He was also reported as a leader in customer experience services in energy and utilities in Nelson Hall. He was also recognized as a leader in 2019 IDC Marketplace for Worldwide Digital Transformation Provider for Utilities. So these are some of the achievements of Sudheer Warrier. We are honored to have him here today in this session. Ms. C.A.S. Deepika, she is currently the Associate Director of Assurance Practice, Governance, Risk and Compliance at C&K and Associates. She is also a special invitee to the Digital Accounting and Assurance Committee of SIRC ICAI. She is also a treasurer in the Institute of Internal Auditors Madras chapter. She is the chairperson for Women's Forum of the Institute of Internal Auditors Madras chapter. And I welcome her. She is also a core committee member in various trainings across ICI, IAI in digital and analytics verticals. So welcome on board, Deepika. May I call now Sudheer to introduce the topic and give an overview of the current digital landscape and about this topic. Thank you.
Good morning. Nobody is having the energy even after a coffee, I think. I know that we are running about 45 minutes late. So I say this is a typical IT project scenario, right? And all the initial phases take a lot of time, and then they say development and testing has to be crunched. So I think between me and Deepika, we'll have to probably give back some time to the organizers here. So let me, when Raman came and told me that you have to speak at this internal audit event, I was actually clueless. I didn't know what will I speak about internal audit and where digital will play. But then I thought about it and I felt that there are certain practices, certain digital imperatives that every company is going through, and that will ultimately help in addressing what internal audit is trying to address. So what I mean by that is, my understanding of internal audit is that this team is looking at risks, ethics, and fraud. Right? These are the three things that you are focusing on. So if there are ways in using digital technology to reduce risk, to be able to sense ethical violations early, take action, and also stop fraud, I think your job would be done, right? So, and I'm also a believer that we should not work hard, we should work smart. So the whole purpose of digital technology is to see how smart we can all be in our working, okay? Unfortunately, my presentation, though I am technology digital head, will have very little technology. And the subject matter expert here will actually talk about more technology and show programs and analytics. So we have just reversed our role for the day. So what I will do is, I have 4 slides just to set the expectation with a few bullets each. I'll just walk through that and maybe Deepika can take over, or if any of you have any questions before she takes over on any of the points that I've raised, or thoughts that you have, more than happy to listen to that. So for any organization, right, especially when it comes to the function that you all are representing, data becomes very critical. So the role of internal auditors in participating in the data strategy of the company is very critical. Okay? So some of the things that I'm going to say here may be slightly revolutionary, but I believe that whenever there is a data strategy discussion, we don't see internal audit team there. When there is requirements for new solutions, we don't see internal audit team there. Whenever there is a discussion on testing strategy, plan, etc., we don't see internal audit team there. And I believe, and this is what we have started at Sundaram Finance in the last 6 to 9 months, is we want that team which is looking at risk and audit to be part of these, not just be part of these activities, but also be contributing actively. So each of you, when you go back, I think should look at and understand how these 3 things are done in your organization and see what role you can play in that, right? Because that will be the most important contribution that you are going to make in a digital age. Otherwise, this audit function will remain as a very reactive function. If you can participate upfront in all of these 3, then you will do all that elimination of issues, so you will work smartly, right? That is the whole idea of what I am listing down here as digital imperatives. So point number 1 is technology has significantly improved over the last so many years. So first thing that I want all of you to take, understand is you should take technology for granted. What I mean is, if you have a problem, there is a technology available, somebody has done a tool. So you don't worry about, oh, how will I develop that? Some of the things that she is going to show, you should not get worried that, oh, I have to now learn this R language, I have to write, you don't have to do anything. Computers themselves will write that program, and there are people who will teach the computer to write the program. Okay, so technology is becoming commodity. So digital is different from technology. People don't understand this. Digital is about deciding why we do something and what we have to do. The how is technology. So you don't get worried about technology, but you need to worry about why and what we need to do. So this point that today in any business, there is so much of data, many of it is very unstructured data. And we have technologies like OCR, computer vision, image processing available, which can help you extract data at source. Most of the errors that we figure out, whether it is in testing or in audit, is because somebody manually did something wrong, even if it is unintentional. So the attempt should be, don't even give that opportunity. So it's almost like on the road, you just have a line and say, all people going this way should go on the left side of the road and the people coming this way should go on the other side of the road. Yeah, that line is there, but you can always cross, right? You see it in Chennai. But if you have a very hard barricade, you just can't go to the other side, right? So you have to create processes, or you have to help your organization create processes through which there is no way of doing it wrong, right? So this is point number one. The second thing which companies like Prudential Insurance did way back in 2000, 2002 is they externalize their entire business logic from their application. Okay, and the reason why they did that was very different. They wanted to introduce products at a very fast pace. And if all the business rules, which is actually what you are auditing, right? What you are auditing are the rules properly applied? Is there any issue in the rules? Is there incomplete stuff? Is what you are actually auditing. So if you could externalize all the business rules, right? You can trace problems. You can solve the cause, right? What caused that problem can be solved rather than solving that problem, right? So which is why this is a very important digital initiative most companies are doing. You would have heard the word BRE, business rule engines, okay? But not many people use it very effectively. So as internal audit team, you can push that concept of business rules and externalizing business rules. There is a concept of exploratory data analysis, which typically the analytics team of the organization does, right? I heard multiple speakers here today saying the internal audit team should employ data analytics techniques. And the tools and softwares available today to analyze data is available for everybody, right? It has got a lot of intelligence embedded in those softwares. So you need to start asking these questions in the organization, that how do I get access to this data, and how do I do exploratory data analysis to come up with patterns. So somebody talked about identify patterns of where things can go wrong. Is it a simple pattern that somebody joining new in the company, learning the system and the process is likely to make more mistakes? Is that the pattern that we are seeing? Or we are seeing people who have been in that job for more than 3 years, who now know everything, they make mistakes or they create those anomalies. So you need to understand patterns of behavior, you need to understand patterns of transactions, etc. So exploratory data analysis is something that internal audit should do, in my opinion. The other thing is, which is where, this is the point where I said internal audit should be part of the requirements phase. When something is shaping up, you need to be there. And what you should insist on straight-through processing, automated workflows, robotic process automation. So there are so many ways you can reduce human intervention, right? So because you know the problems of what can happen and you have that knowledge of all the issues that you have seen, you could be some of the best people to say what could be done straight through. For example, the whole credit rating underwriting process, there is a large part of it could be straight through, right? You take the human variability out of the equation by looking at data, creating scorecards and things like that for the credit officer, using which they take a decision, right? So how much of automation you can do, how much of straight through you can do, can be proposed by this team. All of you would be familiar with logs, right? We are looking for logs. What happened? Audit trail, logs. So some of the things that you need to keep in mind is when a new process is defined, when a new application is designed for that process, that is the time when you have to decide what type of journaling of data is required. Okay? And should it be locally within that process and application, or it should be central? that decision is very critical. Okay? In a digital world, the more central it is, the more integrated analytics you can do, right? The best practice is anything that is done by the system, you don't log. Because it's done by the system, you have validated it, you can always go back and find out what the system does. But anything done by human beings have to be logged so that you can trace back, right? And the power of the tools, big data tools and analytical tools is, unlike olden times, about 10, 15 years ago, even if you have data, you don't know what to do with that data. You don't have ways of analyzing trends. But today, because those tools are available, computing power has become very, very easy to get. Cloud is there on demand. You can get whatever storage you need, compute you need. The ability for you to take large amounts of data and do this analysis is very, very easy. But all of this is only as good as the rules, the trends, the things that you as experts are able to say. So for you to focus more on the subject matter, you need to have some of these practices which will give you more time now to focus on what has to be done. Okay? The other thing that I find when you talk about this topic called fraud, right, especially fraud, is wherever knowledge is not democratized, fraud is more likely to happen. Only a few set of people know about certain things, scams, fraud, everything will happen. The more democratized the knowledge is, the less chances of fraud, right? Secondly, analytical capability is not something that only one small set of people can do. Analytical capability should be there across the organization. For that, unless you have knowledge and data democratized and available, it could be common portals, data stores, where you have access to exploratory data analysis you can do. All of that will enable better access to data and therefore reducing fraud. I think Deepika is going to talk about the AML model. She'll show you, how certain models are developed and how easy it is in the new world to develop. So people who have not explored any of this, my suggestion is you should start with small, very few parameters, few variables, little sort of patterns, experiment it yourself, right, using some of the tools before you try very, very significant models and trying to predict the future, right? That is why I said you can actually look at past data, past issues that you have had, and learn patterns from that and create models. So creation of models is easy because there are tools, but what are the patterns that I'm looking for and what are the parameters that will lead to change in the outcome is something that has to come from this team working with maybe some of your business colleagues. Okay? There are some practices I feel will really help. Okay? This has nothing to do with technology. Typically what in organizations, we treat all user profiles the same. We give the same amount of importance or the same amount of analysis. So if you look at the way, if you look customer experience, you look at everything, you're talking about personas, right? So there is a person and that person has multiple personas. A simple example is you are a traveler. You are for an airline customer, you are a traveler. When you travel for business purposes, you are a different persona. When you travel with your family for holiday, you are a different persona. So all their customer experience, personalization and everything will be dependent on what is that persona you are now, right? And that will decide what offers are given to you, what kind of facilities are shown to you, etc., will be depending on that persona. So even internal audit, when you look at, you might have people doing the same roles, right, or same job. But within that, you will be able to identify groups of people who are of different categories. And the kind of validations or rules that you apply for different groups should be different. Okay? The people who have, as I said, just joined the company, moved from another financial organization to your financial organization is a different persona, because they are used to doing certain things in a certain way in the other organization. So your ability to monitor them in the very early stage to find out what you need to do you need to make them unlearn certain things and learn certain things, is very important. Because if they carry that not so good practice from there to here, you end up corrupting what is already a very good system. A lot of people say, oh, we used to be a very nice organization, no issues, nobody does any fraud, nothing happens, very ethical. Suddenly over the last 5 years, digital has created a problem. That's what they tell me. I said, digital has not created a problem. The problem is because you don't have practices which, when you increased your strength, did not take care of. Okay? The other thing is, the good practice is you have to, there are long processes, right? You have to break them into smaller processes. The authority of doing processes and the verification you do has to be in smaller chunks. We are all used to creating long processes, and one person is responsible for the entire process, right? And that creates more anomalies, issues, etc. This I spoke about. I'll just talk about this last point on superficial correlation of data points. Mr. Raman's book on what was it? Fraud in BFSI. Yeah. So if you have, yeah. So I'm not a promoter of his book, but it has got a very good summary of all the various things one need to take care, and he gives a beautiful example of people going to Tirupati and marriages are correlated by people. It's not a direct correlation, right? You need to get more data points of people going to Tirupati and you have to get more data points of people getting married. You have to correlate that to really understand whether those two events have a correlation, right? So one of the mistakes in analytics, data analytics we do is we do a very superficial level correlation. There is a very nice paper of Harvard, in Harvard Book Review. If you go to HBR, there's a very nice article about superficial data correlation. I think it will be a good read for you to understand what you should not do, right? This is one thing which I am told is not a very easy thing to do, but to the IAA association, I'm saying if you can encourage organizations to share their learnings and best practices among other organizations, it is a win-win-win for everybody. This is my, in the new digital age, it is all about openness and abundance. If you hold your knowledge and your things so closely to yourself, it's not a good thing. Nobody will benefit from it. So the more open you are, software has become open, tools have become open, everything is becoming open, so we have to also become open. So we need to, one of the best practices could be for maybe having a forum where just these best practices and findings are shared, right? Even models can be shared because data is yours. The model, if you don't do, somebody else will do that model. Anyway, there are product companies who are looking at creating models. They are recruiting people from every industry and creating models. So we may as well contribute and be part of it. For me, in the whole digital age, or even otherwise, the culture that you create in an organization is as important or more important than the technology and tools and practices. Okay? So this might look a very simple thing, and I found it very effective in TCS where I used to work. We used to do a lot of this business process outsourcing, right, where the operations of the customers are done by our teams. And there is a lot of possibilities for our people to share customer data, do a lot of things, right? Because it's live customer data that they are operating on, sitting here remotely in India. Now, what looked like a very simple cultural thing, that every day morning, everybody who's doing this gets up at 10 o'clock in the morning and reads out a pledge for maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay? So, might think they're insignificant, but one of the things that you need to understand, and this is something to do with the way our brain and mind works, is you keep reading the same thing many times over, it gets into your subconscious, right? So, when you have an opportunity to do something, something tells you not to do it. So there is a tickle somewhere saying, boss, doesn't look nice, right? So very important to create that, because you can do whatever systems you want to do on digital you want to do, people will beat it. If you guys have used Uber, Ola lately, you would have seen it. I don't know how many of you have experienced this. You book an Uber and it shows 375 rupees and you are waiting. The guy calls you, the driver. And the driver asks, I'm telling in Tamil, you can ask in any language, sir, evlo kaamikirudhu sir? So you would say 375. The next thing he says is, you cancel it, you pay me that 375. Or you pay me 300, it's okay. 50 rupees, 100 rupees less. You cancel it and get paid. Pay me this 300. Where is digital? There is no digital here, right? That system has been broken. And why does he do it? Because when they started, out of the 375, that guy used to get 325. Now he gets 234 rupees. I'm not joking. I traveled from airport to my house, 377, 25 rupees tip, 402 whatever, he got 234.78. So that is the amount of money intermediaries are taking out. Why the hell would that guy drive that car like that, right? He said, give me 50 rupees less. So it's a win-win. For me as a passenger, I pay less. For him as a driver, he pays more. He uses the Uber infrastructure. So you can create any sophisticated digital tool. I can assure you it can be beaten if you don't have the right culture. So we hear in internal audits, controls. We don't have control on anything. I think that's the first thing that internal audit guys should understand. We don't have control on ourselves, right? We are not able to control ourselves. I decide tomorrow onwards I will do intermediary fasting. And then nice coffee smell, I say forget it, yeah. What? No control. Right? I can put whatever, I will only have control when my wife is watching or somebody, then I will have control. So that is not a real control, right? So if you need to create that controls, culture has to change. So, which is why some of these things are very important. Rotate people around. The same guy doing the same job is more likely to create problems for you. Okay? Change the location, change the reviewer. There is this thing in Switzerland, that if you have to get promoted, you have to have served in at least 3 colleges, you have to have worked with a different dean. So there are criteria that you have to fulfill before you can move to the next step. What happens typically, at least in India, you work with the same boss, you get promoted faster. Theriyumpa, he has done mistakes, but I know good boy, right? It's like, they say when my father is the selector. So rotation, change of location, everything is very critical. Somebody, I think Mr. Murugan, somebody said that this internal audit has to become the advisor to the board or the priority, right? And I fully agree with that. The moment the board says these type of risk, ethics and fraud control, and how this department has to be integral to everything working. What he did not say is that they have to be part of requirement gathering, they have to be part of data strategy, they have to be part of analytics models, etc. But that should flow from there. That will be the strategic way that you have to work going forward. There is another thing which is, whenever you put controls, wherever possible, make it non-intrusive, some of the things are better done post facto. Okay, I was giving an example to Deepthi and Raman yesterday that, sometimes what we do, you have to get these 3 approvals before you can board that bus. We had a situation in TCS where to take an afternoon shuttle, you have to get some 2 approvals, 3 approvals. The guy will decide not to go. Instead, you let that guy go, collect his information, and post facto do a verification with his managers. You will find out that it is a non-intrusive way of doing it. You will still do the check, right? But you are not doing it. Sometimes you are being too proactive for no reason. So when you introduce controls, please make sure that if you are in that shoe, how will you feel? We feel so bad even in the security line in the airport. What is this guy checking here? Turn around and all, he says no. Earlier he used to only make you stand straight. Now he says turn around, as if he has found out some new thing that I can do. So it's very intrusive and we feel very uncomfortable, right? All of us feel very uncomfortable. So in a day-to-day life, when I'm doing a work, I have too many intrusive controls. It's not a good practice. It doesn't create a good culture because it makes people think differently. Oh, apdiya. I will see, right? This is how you are doing, no? I will take care of it. So culture is very, very important. So don't create distrust among the larger population because you want to catch the small set of people who are doing wrong, right? Because you're targeting those people, everybody else's trust is gone. So you need to devise methodologies. You have to figure out how not to do that. If intent is there, mechanisms will come. This is my last chart. So we are in a phygital world, okay? This thing or digital is taking over. Digital will never take over. Please understand, right? Digital can only do so much, beyond which humans have to take care, right? So some of the things that I say is, I heard this very nice quote from Gartner, not quote, line in the Gartner conference. They say, no AI tool or digital will replace a physician. But a physician who has digital and AI tools will replace a physician who doesn't have the tools. So it is not technology that is replacing. The people who are more empowered with tools and digital equipment will replace the other guy. You have a plumber, the plumber has digital tools with him, that guy will replace another plumber, maybe a better plumber than this guy. But you will always go for this guy, right? You know how to call him, he has got an app, he will come whenever required. How many of you have used Urban Clap? Urban Clap, no, it's called? Urban something, right? So easy. So my neighbor uncle was like shell-shocked when he said something like this is possible. He was, you just have to put, the guy will come, he will give you a time, he will do things. Then finally I told him, sir, konja jasti pay panno. Little, you have to pay for that convenience. He said, that is okay. Because for him that headache goes away. So this guy, the guy electrician who comes, may be a lesser grade electrician compared to the electrician that you know, but you call him, phone is half the time switched off, busy, he doesn't call back, right? So the experience of doing something changes with digital tools. So we have to understand that every expert in your organization is a good guy, right? But every expert has a limitation. Vishwanathan Anand cannot win all the games. So if Vishwanathan Anand, Kasparov, everybody comes together, which is what the chess thing is now, the chess can beat anybody. The chess computer, personality, right, which is there, can beat anybody. Maybe these guys will win five times, but the machine now knows how to beat because it's got a collective knowledge of all the possible combinations and moves and strategies that people have can be encapsulated, right? And the company will, benefit even after the experts are gone. And the other thing is, if you have experts in your organization, when you need, the expert will have his own emotions. I was not involved in this, why are you calling me now? Type of thing, right? So where is digital required? We have to, I call this in Sundaram Finance, prosthetic memory. I have to create prosthetic memory from the knowledge of all the people so that this prosthetic memory, which is not emotional, I can use whenever required. Right? So I can have Raman, who's a great guy, that day he's having not a good day. I go and ask him, I said, come tomorrow. Boss, I have a problem to solve today. Sorry. Right? So which is why we need. Second thing is, you don't let machines take decisions. You can let machines give you information, data, analysis in a way using which you can take a decision. Right? That should be the focus. The idea of digital age is not that everything will automatically. Automation doesn't mean that it all happens without your knowledge. Automation is to say certain things which I can always, it's repeatable, the pattern is understood. Why do I do it? Nobody wants to do that, right? It's like imposition in school. Why want to write 1,000 times? Copy, paste. That's all we want to do, right? So, the other last thing is here, understand that internal audit data, very huge, heterogeneous, unstructured, structured, everything. So you need computing power. So these are the reasons why we use it. Experts are still required. All of you will still have a job. Don't think that, this guy is talking, all of the automation happens, what will I look for a new job? No, you can do better jobs. So an organization is growing. Typically what happens, I have 20 people in my audit team. The way our business is growing, I think I will recruit another 40 guys in the next 2 years. Not required. With these tools that the same 20 people can handle 3 times the business volume that is there today. Because they do only the essential stuff. The remaining is done by the tools. So that is the digital age. Okay? Your jobs or your expertise is not going to go away. So that is what I had to say. Any top of your head questions, I'm more than happy to take. Else I will let Deepika come and show some of the tools, etc. So I've taken exactly half an hour. You have half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. So in my presentation, continuation of this, we are going to look at the tools and techniques for data analytics which we can implement and integrate as part of our audit. So let's say traditionally when we do data processing for audit, we had discrete scenarios. We apply based on our experience, discrete decisions, let's say risk control matrix we are bringing. So the risks which we foresee depends on our experience. It's not 100%, let's say we are covering every scenario that could happen, right? So, and then we arrive at the conclusion. So this is the traditional methodology which we have been applying for processing data. Now let's see how model building happens for automating or let's say assessing the big data. So first we are having historical data. So from the historical data, we are building an algorithm. What is this algorithm going to do? This algorithm will be based on similar insights where we used to do on a discrete decision making, but using statistical techniques like decision trees, regression equations, random forest, classification and regression trees. There are different statistical techniques which are used, maybe some of them which we are using already, but without assigning the statistical name. Okay, and we build the data model. So this is, for example, I'll just go to a data set. This is a loan portfolio data dump. Duplicate is not happening, just a minute. Yeah. So this is a sample database which is of a loan portfolio data. So when my past data is there, let it load. When my past data is there, I have the outputs which are already defined. Like for example, I know whether that loan was defaulted or repaid. Let's say this category of borrower with this income ratio in this area, doing this business, whether he'll have the capacity to repay or not. whether it is, let's say he's doing a regional business, or whether he's doing all other screens other than this is coming. Okay. So, yeah, I think it is coming in the right hand side, right? That is my data dump, but okay, no problem. Anyways, the existing data, we are having the output which is already defined. Like I know whether what has happened. Let's say a particular fraud indicator. I know which category of persons are defaulting. I know which category of purchases go through fraud risk. So those things we are knowing. So these are the things which we train our algorithm for. Then we build a data model wherein we are building a model to predict whether actual output that has happened and my output which has happened is right or wrong. So it's just a comparative. So it's like re-performance testing what we do. We run through the calculations, we re-perform and arrive at an audit output, right? So that is okay for the quantitative methods where there is a fixed formula, where there is a fixed equation. When there is no fixed equation, when there is a risk underlying, where there is a control which is sentiment based, qualitative decisions. Those things when we want to include into our data model, we need to use this approach. So once we do this approach and we build our data model, what happens is this data model is repeatable. So any new data that goes into, I will be able to get some predictions. So here in our audit scenario, the predictions will be the red flags. So for example, one use case which we discuss now is, let's say loan portfolio data. So what is the red flag there? Loan going default. So in what aspect of control we are evaluating it? We are evaluating it as an expected credit loss. ECL. We need to make a provision. We need to foresee what is going to go wrong. What is my good portfolio? What is my SMA portfolio? What is my bad portfolio? So when we want to do that, we'll be able to take this decision. So like this, we have different use cases which we can use. So statistically, just to introduce you to the kinds of decision which data analytics can support, the first category will be the qualitative decision making techniques. That will be my content analysis. Let's say there's a mail. I can analyze the text content in it. Okay, I have audio messages. I can actually arrive at what they are trying to convey. Okay, sentiment analysis. So all of us may be aware of this Instagram reactions, Facebook reactions, LinkedIn reactions, sentiment analysis. So sentiment analysis is also used in text analytics. So email reading, narration reading, document reading. Let's say you have a document folder. So there are techniques and tools wherein we can read all the PDF documents saved, or like DLP tools, how our DLP tool works. Data leak prevention and protection tools. They read through our mails, they read through our content, and they say whether any sensitive data is inside it or not. The same category we can use for actually evaluating whether there is any red flags, negative things, or a positive thing which we have not considered. So those things also can be done. So next is the quantitative decision making. So in quantitative decision making, that is the straightforward audit analytics which we are currently using, where we have re-performance testing, outlier testing, exception reporting, red flags, where we can do it on a periodic basis. We have some Excel template files, we have some SQL queries or automated exception reports which we have configured in our ERP. Those things come under audit analytics, which is coming under statistically the quantitative decision making techniques. Basically, past data is there. I'm not actually feeding any specific algorithm for doing it. I'm just seeing like mean, median, mode, variance, outlier testing. Those things and all will come under descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. So just a brief introduction. We have, these are the techniques which are commonly used: decision trees, regression trees, clustering mechanism where I can group unstructured data and then derive value out of it. So I have listed some technique names also. So going into the entire techniques and how it works, maybe like a 3-year course. But yes, these are all very useful, very simple, as sir rightly mentioned, with the availability of tools like R, Python, Power BI, Cosmos. There are so many tools in market, which is actually 9, etc., are making this job very, very simple. We are able to have workflows, we are able to have auto ML tools, wherein even the task of doing this first level, where I need to finalize which algorithm which I have to use, what are my dependent variables, what are my independent variables. These are also automated to an extent. It's not like I have to write raw code for everything. We are having some loan portfolio data. This is, I have taken very small data set for discussing. We have term of loan, EMI ratio, installment, interest rate, then whether it is, what is the purpose, what is the nature, repayment cycle, and the most important, the final loan status, whether it was fully paid or it was default. So this is my historic data which I can have from the tenure of the company, or from the industry perspective also we can build one model. It's not specific for the entity as such. So now let's say this data is there. What is my objective of the analytical technique is, I will create one more column. My algorithm should reperform, and yeah, there is some screening delay, but still. Okay, anyways, but it's going to be a little difficult if there is screening delay. Anyways, loan status is there, where we can actually extrapolate and come back and find the algorithm. So now let's take, how do we build that activity? So this is our studio. So let's say I want to build a early warning system. I may need overall some 100 lines of code, where I'm actually loading the data, cleaning the data, I'm removing the outliers, so that any exception scenario is removed from my model, and my model will work in all scenarios in similar way. Then I'll be actually evaluating the output for different iterations, and I'll be testing the output. What was the original result? What is my model result? So this is a iterative process which we'll be doing. So how R works, R has libraries inbuilt. Like how Excel has functions and formulas, R and Python has libraries. So we have to decide what are the libraries we are going to use, load those libraries in. So these are the libraries which I have loaded. So, and I have loaded the data into. So now if you see, I'm not going to do the entire model review. I'll just show you how we are training the data. So if you see, we are using here CART as the technique which we are going to use. CART means classification and regression tree, okay, which is going to help me in decision making. That is for different parameters, how my default has worked. Like actually for building the tree, it is only one line code. So what I have to define, what is the dependent variable, what are the independent variables. So let's say default is my independent variable now, y. Okay, I have to solve all the x and the betas which are required to actually give me whether it is default or not. Okay, so when I run this, my output will be something similar to this. So it actually gives me a decision tree with lot of parameters for every consideration, and it gives me what is the output. Okay, green means it was positive, I mean to say the loan was repaid. Blue means negative, it was default. So if I have to summarize this tree, I can write small lines of codes and I can bring my conclusions like this. If the loan was let's say 60-month term, and the business purpose of the loan was this, and the income of the person was this, what is the segment? It was defaulted, so it's a high risk segment. Like that I can bucket my data and bring into one structure, and I can build this. Now as an auditor, this is one control which we are going to test. right? So as a data scientist, should I build all these lines of code in R, then do the analysis, test the model, see the output? Should I do all this? If you do, well and good. Otherwise, there are a lot of solutions where we can actually do only as a risk assessment perspective. Like for example, I am going to show you one chart. This is in the tool called Power BI. Okay, this is a spline chart. So the same data I have loaded for two critical variables, which as per that model was critical. Okay, the two variables I have taken is credit score and loan to EMI ratio, salary to EMI ratio. Okay, these two we have taken as critical variables, and we have populated a regression line. How this chart came? With 0 line codes. I downloaded Power BI. I downloaded this visual called spline chart. It's available in, I mean to say, add-ins sort of. So once I do it, it's only drag drop of fitting the what should be my x-axis, what should be my y-axis. I'm just dragging drop. And this chart is populated. So now, than the entire re-performance testing, which was originally contemplated, now I know the spread of the entire loan. If my credit score was higher and repayment EMI ratio was less, okay, this is the area where I'm having maximum reds. So this will be the chunk of portfolio which I want to do more audit procedures. So this type of assessment we can do without knowing the entire statistical or mathematical algorithms behind data analytics. So like this, we spoke about correlation, right? So only if we bring the data into a table form where I'm defining x1, x2, x3, x4. Let's say I want to do an expenditure audit. Okay, I can just populate each GL as one column. Okay, let's say date-wise spread. I have expenses like travel expenses, coffee expenses, different things. I can see the correlation between each expenses by just using one visual called core plot. I do not know any statistical mathematical models for that. So I have to just go here, I'll give add visual, okay, and I just import core plot, and I can just populate the visual. So though data analytics is seen like a very complex exercise, with the help of tools, big data tools, we'll be able to do much better work. So this box and whiskers, this is another statistical chart which we can use for outlier testing. So this is generally used for stock rate movement. During the day, during the week, they'll give box and whiskers plot. Okay, the same thing we can use for our particular audit period data to identify the spread of data. What is my outliers? How I can, what is the spread of data? What is the outliers, etc. So now let's see, similar to this, we can actually have models for simple things like text and sentiment analytics. So in sentiment analytics, how we have to evaluate? So we are having, let's say, some line is written. I need to know what is the positive words, what are the negative words. So now if I have to build a model for this, I have to train my data with the entire key of dictionary of positive words, entire dictionary of what all are my red flags and negative words. And then once my model is ready, I can put it into any of the text field which I want to analyze. So now using tools, how simple it can be done is, sorry, without juggling with multiple screens, it is not possible to show. Okay, so we have a straight menu where I can just click text analytics, okay, and choose the text box which I want to analyze, and it gives me, okay, so this is a data where I am having emails. So email headers are there in one column, and email body is in another column, okay. And what we are doing is, in text analytics, it's a direct function. I have not built anything separate. So I have to, once I use the direct function, it gives me what is called as a score sentiment. So score sentiment is between, similar to correlation, it's between 0 to 1. So anything less than 0.5 will be a negative sentiment, and anything more than 0.5 will be a positive sentiment. So straight away I know what is negative, what is positive. I can just populate some chart for seeing what is the actual content which is positive, what is negative. I can just, without reading through, let's say, one person email inbox, if we see, there's going to be lakhs of mails. So now if I want to do a forensic audit, than actually going through mail by mail, looking at putting filter sender-wise, subject-wise, recipient-wise, etc. If I'm going to use this tool, it is going to help me to summarize and bring the actual sample which I want to analyze, or actual mails which I want to read. And this way actually I'm analyzing the entire mailbox, not just few mails which is coming from my filter. So these are all some simple techniques and tools which I wanted to share from big data analytics point of view. So if I have time, just I'll take another 5 minutes to show what are, from financial research or financial risk assessment perspective, what type of models are available ready-made. So this is just to, which we can use on a day-to-day assessment. So let's say we are evaluating a vendor, or we are evaluating a customer. We are evaluating their financial statements for what perspective? First thing is working capital, net worth, and we are going to evaluate for going concern, whether the balance sheet is capable of running or not. So for this also, we have 5 established statistical models, okay, where if there is a window dressing in balance sheet, if it gives a negative score. If there's a falsification of balance sheet, it will give a score. If the company is capable of handling going concern or not, it gives a score. So basically, these are all predictive analytics models which are based on linear regression or multilinear regression. Okay, so I'll just take one for example. So Benish M-score is based on 8 categories of financial result. Okay, so how what this score is used for is as a manipulation indicator. That is, if the balance sheet is window dressed, based on this Benish M-score, I can identify which area of balance sheet is manipulated. So what are the 8 areas? The 8 areas are given below. That is days in sales and receivable index, gross margin index, asset quality, sales growth, depreciation, then total accruals to total assets. Like this, we have 8 categories of financial statement assessments which we are taking. And on top is the algorithm or the formula which is arrived already by Benish based on the financial data which was available and which all companies were defrauded, which all companies had actually stood the test of time, what type of net worths they had. So like he had built with the database of financial statements which is available, this multilinear regression model. So M will be my independent variable, and these are my beta values, 0.9 to 0.5 to points. These are my beta values, and these are my x1, x2, x3. It's simple mathematical regression model. So he has already arrived at the equation. So my work is just I have to substitute my financial statements for this, and I get a score wherein I will be able to evaluate whether the company has likely manipulation of profits or it is a proper financial statements. So this has already had, so this image is from GMT research for Benish, where they have tested this model with all the Asian companies with market cap of more than $1 billion, and they have identified this model to align with the actual financial statements. So how we can use this model? Very, very simple. Back to our Excel sheet, we can just go to our Excel. We can build simple, how we used to do ratio analytics, or sorry, ratio analysis. Similar to that, we can just have one Excel where financial statement numbers are common, and we can have formulas for summarizing the 8 parameters as per Benish. It's loading, I have changed my screen. Okay, and it will give the likeliness score. So same thing can be done for all the 5 financial risk models. for the net worth, for bankruptcy, for falsification, etc. So this way, lot of analytical techniques we can actually include in our normal audit procedures without doing lot of coding and lot of, I mean to say, using things which are already invented is one area which I thought we will focus on today. Yes, but that Beniscore screen is not moving, I don't know why. Okay, no problem. I can share the file, not an issue. Actually, we trialed this as soon as we entered the auditorium, but I don't know why. Yeah, it loaded. So basically, if you see this sheet, we are having P&L and balance sheet comparative. 3 years, 5 years balance sheet we can take, and we can, similar to how we have a ratio analysis sheet for assessing the solvency ratios or sales ratios, etc. Similar to that, we can have ratios for sheets for Benish, Altman score, Olson score, etc., where I am defining what are the columns, what are the fields which should be coming for DSRI, what should come for gross margin, what should come for asset quality, etc. And the ratios are calculated from the balance sheet, and I get the score also. So this is the simplest way where we can adopt analytics into our financial risk assessment. So the first use case we saw was on the credit risk assessment. The second use case we saw is for the financial risk assessment, so which can be used on different aspects. So with this, I conclude my session. So if any doubts, I think Sudhir sir and I can take. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It is generally applicable across industry, sir. But any specific, I can give you. So there's a full book on financial risk about all the statistical methods. So before using, you can actually see, it doesn't have so much disclaimers like Benford. It is pretty common. We have used in not all internal audits, all forensic audits we have used to actually find out the areas where we want to dig deeper. Yes, sir. Sir, mic is not working. I'm not able to hear you. Can... I can...
Yeah. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. Hi, sir. Thank you. Let me try this. So my second question is only a follow-up question on that. So if you try to superimpose this particular model on, say, some of the companies which had a huge frauds, say, for example, Satyam or ILFS or those kind of companies. So could you do some kind of
case
study on that, whether this is actually thrown some kind of red flags on those companies?
Yes,
if
sir.
you had tested this at that point of time.
Yes, sir. Actually, we had tested, sir. The data I showed you now itself is from one listed company which was defrauded, which I don't want to name. But yes, we have tested. We did some R&D before implementing this into our audit procedure, sir.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
So maybe we can discuss. Maybe from IAA itself, we can do a white paper in near future.
Oh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ma'am, there were certain thresholds that you showed in that F-test.
Yes, sir.
So those thresholds are universal across
Industry. Yes,
industry.
sir. So it's based on financial reporting used in Asia generally. So now, since we are all aligning to IFRS, I think it should be equally replicatable in even other parts of the country.
Thanks, ma'am. Very informative, actually.
Yes. So I think any questions we can take offline also, since we are already running late. I'll be here for the whole day, and sir is also available for some more time. If you have any questions, sir will be taking now.
So I don't have much time to summarize. I think the next session is already about 45 minutes delayed. So let me just thank Sudhir and Deepika for giving us so much of insights about the whole data analytics world and the tools, solutions, and the whole gamut of activities that we can do. Of course, the underlying thing is always there will be a human intervention at some point in time, and there's an opportunity for all internal auditors. And it's much more about upskilling ourselves is what the underlying statement is all about. So you don't have to lose your night to, study all these technologies. You need to kind of imbibe these into your daily routine of activities that you do as an audit professional. So thanks, Sudhir and Deepika. Thank you.
That wonderful, enlightening and detail-oriented session. I request our Board of Governor member, Mr. KBS Manian, to please present our speakers with a memento. Thank you so much.